the Within Orb podcast. Come get Within Orb. Hello, my name is Jenn Zahrt, and welcome to Within Orb, a production of the Celestial Arts Education Library, a podcast bringing people together around the love of astrology, books. Join me as I interview people about the astrology books that changed their life and practice. You can support the podcast at withinorb.com. Welcome to another episode of Within Orb, and today I'm beaming halfway around the world to Bodrum, Turkey with my colleague Baris Ilhan. Welcome.
Hello, Jen. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. I see you as a titan of the publishing industry in Turkey, so today we're going to have a little bit of a different kind of conversation than you're used to on the show. But before we begin with that, Baris, what was your first astrology book?
Yes, this is a mystery because in Turkey, there wasn't any astrology books when I started. And when I was at high school, beginning of high school, there was an American military base close to my high school. And at the weekends, they had the flea market, second-hand market. So we were going there and I was buying astrology books from them. From the soldiers, American soldiers.
Oh, my.
Yeah, mostly they were about next year and sometimes about science. But I was buying them. I was very curious, and especially for those almanacs, I was still learning about the science. I wasn't really very much interested in predictive point. I was mostly interested in knowing the person. That's why I was reading those. Then a book was printed in Turkey. It was with a foreign name, but there wasn't any astrologer with that name. Most probably somebody translated the foreign book and put a name.
They made a name up, just like that.
Yes.
That's funny.
It is called Astrology, Your Future, something like that.
Yeah. I
remember that book, taking a look at that book. And then there was Linda Goodman, but I wasn't very much interested in that. I don't remember really paying attention. Mm-hmm. Then at one point, I bought somebody brought me from United States, because still we don't have any books here, the Astrologer's Handbook. It is written by Francis and Louise Acker. That was kind of like a textbook. I mean, I learned many practical things from that book. Also, that book, while reading it, I decided what kind of an astrologer I will be.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Because if you are interested.
Totally interested.
I have 3 planets in the 8th house. And when one is Sun, Moon, and Mercury. So, for example, Sun means everybody will hear about my death. When I die, I will be famous because of my death. And also Moon shows popularity, something like that. And also Mercury is the media. I thought, okay. And also Mars rules that house. I said, okay, I will have a terrible traffic accident. I will die there, bloody death. And I will on the first page of a newspaper. Then I said, okay, this may be true, whatever. I don't care. I am going to use those planets while I am alive. Mm-hmm. So this is how I decided to be more into self-actualization. I mean, at that time, we were calling it psychological astrology, but now I don't call it psychological astrology. It is more like self-actualization.
I love that.
So through that book, I found my way, really.
Yeah, I remember seeing one of your presentations on the 4th house and feeling just so impressed by how you blend together not just modern astrologies, but also traditional astrologies.
Yes.
So how did traditional astrology make its way into your field?
Of course, when the classical astrology again flourished, and all over the world, psychological astrologers and classical astrologers started to fight at one point. I didn't let it happen in Turkey. I don't care. We are not here to insult each other. We are here to learn from each other. And definitely the basics of classical astrology is very important. How it started, what they meant, what did they do with all those knowledge. So I started learning it. I am not really a classical astrology student, but I attend all the lectures, I read the books, and I invite classical astrologers as a speaker to my school. So we are learning, and I am adding them into my practice, that knowledge. It gets richer and richer.
Yeah. So what are the top 3 books that have influenced your practice?
Yes, I thought about it a lot. First of all, I learned about many things from Stephen Arroyo's books, especially the 4 elements. I am very much interested in those elements, really. Of course, Astrology, Karma, Transformation is a very good book. And also 12 Houses by Sasportas has a great impact in my life.
How did it impact you? What was the impressive part of Sasportas' 12 Houses book for you?
When I was reading all those planets in the houses, it was like a huge journey. I started really thinking about the planets in the houses. I learned a lot from his books. Also, I didn't read his book, but I learned a lot from Michael Lutin.
Mm-hmm.
I was attending all his lectures, and they were all like books for me, really.
Wow.
And I learned a lot from Jeff Green's Pluto book, especially the first Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
There are others. Stephen's Inner Sky. I keep on printing it because he's a very good storyteller, and he invites you into the soul of the signs. So people start feeling them. So then from his book, I imagine that we are here in a process from non-being to being. So we are learning to be our own sign. That kind of a journey he invited me into this.
Have you been translating a lot of these works into Turkish?
Yes.
So you've played an instrumental role in the transmission of astrology into Turkey. Can you tell me more about that process?
Yes. Mm-hmm. As I said, when I first started, there weren't any astrology books. But when I started as an astrologer in 1993, there were a few, still 1 or 2 books. And I needed to present people this new kind of astrology because everybody was considering it as a fortune-telling method, like coffee cup reading, that kind of stuff. So I said, I need to tell people about this new kind of modern psychological astrology, in what way they can use it. So I decided to write a book. And I wrote about planetary cycles because it is not very technical. Everybody can understand. And definitely everybody is having problems between 35 and 45 in their lives. And many people change their lives at that time. They get divorced, they get married, they change their job and city, whatever, something. We were calling some astrologers friends. We say it is like a truck hits you at that age. Yeah. Kind of, and you change your lane. So it was easy for me because I am one of those. I wrote about those planetary cycles. Then I took it to a publishing house. And they loved it. And they said, okay, we can print it. But then I said, but it is not enough. Yeah, you need to print 10 more astrology books with mine. So I had chosen 10 books. Near my book, you have to print those 10 books. And they had chosen some of them. Then the owner said, why don't you open your own publishing house? So it will be specialized only on astrology and you can do whatever you want to do. Then I thought that's a good idea. So immediately I started translating Inner Sky, Stephen's book, then The Changing Sky, then Four Element, Sasportas books. And also there was Hayoban's of Keywords of Astrology, which, this is a very important book for me too. Mm-hmm. I learned a lot from that book. Unfortunately, Hayo had died now. Mm. And so one by one, I started translating them. And also all my high school friends, they know English very well. I said, you are going to translate them with me. So we started translate. And you won't believe that, for example, Inner Sky, the first book after mine, was out of print maybe 6 years later.
Wow.
Nobody was buying them. But now when I print it, it is out of print in 1 month.
Wow.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you've paved the way for people in Turkey to learn astrology.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they learned really modern psychological astrology. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A huge percentage of astrologers now in Turkey started with the books that I had translated. The thing is, I translate foreign books. I don't publish Turkish astrologers' books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Only my books. I have two. One is about those planetary cycles. The other is the textbook. Other than that, I bring foreign, English, written in English. Those books I translate because I want Turkish readers to be able to read those books.
Yeah, that's a really important role. Thank you so much for doing all of that. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm. So all those books behind me, they are the books I had published.
Yeah. So for the people listening, Baris is sitting in front of a Zoom screen that shows all of the books that she's published over the years. And it's full of books. So if you go to the blog site and you check our site, you can see the picture.
Yes. And this is, for example, Deborah's Houses book. This is 12,000 book.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah, no, I was looking at that spherical graphic.
Yes, and Solar Return book, and James Braha's prediction books, Dimitra's asteroid books.
Amazing.
I had printed. Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for you about translation and the shape of the houses. So we're looking at this sphere that has this almost tangerine slice of each house around the world. Is there a word for what that shape is in Turkish, this division that makes it into a sort of tangerine slice?
No.
Okay.
We just call it houses.
Okay, I was just curious.
Dilim, slices, dilim, we call it, the slices.
Zilim. Is it referred to that in Turkish? Zilim?
Dilim is like pizza dilim too.
Oh,
pizza
okay.
slice.
Okay.
That's
Very cool, very cool. Imagine stepping into a room of 5,000 astrology books, turning a corner and stepping into a room of 2,000 more. The Celestial Arts Education Library is every astrologer's dream, and it can be yours. I invite you to come support CAELi before you can visit physically. Your support will mean the creation of 52 new episodes of Within Orb next year, 4 issues of the CAELi Review, our inaugural journal, and countless book talks, events, classes for our community. Visit our website, www.caeli.institute/support, to select your level of care. Please help support CAELi into the future, our future, so that we may study the future together. Thank you for listening. Please enjoy the rest of the show. So is there anything in Turkish and or Arabic Ottoman that you love that isn't yet in English that you're trying to bring across with your work?
Yes.
Let's speak about that.
In 1998, I went to that conference in San Francisco called Cycles and Symbols Conference. They, Rick Tarnas and Stanislav Grof, taught us, there was a workshop. I attended that. Especially Stanislav Grof was talking about Jesus there, how those symbols was affecting his patients, and from their visions he was able to come to conclusions. Then when he was describing these, I said, okay, I totally understand what he's talking about, but I don't feel it. So I try to figure out, is there anything that gives me that feeling in my culture? And I couldn't think about it at that time. So when I came back from United States, I started looking at my own culture. I like mysticism, Islamic philosophy, all that. And I studied kind of Islamic science. And I was at NCGR, so I was going to finish level 4. So I wrote a research on the astrology of Ottoman Empire. Just to give information, what were the astrologers doing at that time, from where they came, and all those. So on my way, I met this guy called Nasreddin Tusi. It is the 13th century astrologer. I found one of his books. They were teaching at madrasas at that time, especially to draw the calendars. They were using it. And then I found his astrology books written in Persian. So I went to that Istanbul University and started working with professors for the translation. We translated it many years ago. So I learned a lot from those books, and I had been teaching these since then, but I couldn't finish writing them, all those translations. I am using it, but I couldn't put it on the paper. Also, during that research, I met some other Arabic Ottoman astrology books, and we had translated them too. It was a many years project. So one by one, I am trying to finish those and print it in Turkish and in English. For example, there is a Horary book. We are working on it now. The Turkish version will be finished next year. Then I am planning to translate it into English immediately.
Yeah. Are there techniques inside of these sources that you haven't seen before that we need to know about?
Well, for myself, I know classical astrologers. Well, many astrologers are interested in techniques, but I am more interested in philosophy and ethics kind of stuff. I hope some of the books will satisfy the techniques. But for me, I learned from Tusi that in ethics books or ancient ethic books, we can find all the symbolism of the planets. So I learned a lot about those planets, about that symbolism, and I want to get into it more, because then you understand Mercury's function and Venus's, Mars's, for example, especially those three. I already thought maybe I will write something in future. And now I am working on Sun and Moon. Although we think that we know everything about Sun and Moon, no, we don't. So I am working on it. I will maybe work with an Islamic philosopher about this topic, the Sun and Moon.
Wow.
The soul, about the soul.
Yeah.
Those are interesting things I met on my way.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like there's this common pathway of storytelling and then the higher level of philosophy versus the practical. This is how you calculate this arc distance to make this technique work. And you're like, technique, okay, but what's the deeper level of philosophy behind it? And so my next question would be, to what extent does number play a critical role from the Islamic view of astrology in terms of a foundational philosophy? Is number one of the baselines, or is it planets are showing us number, or we get number and then we get planets? Like, what's the back and forth there in the philosophical conception?
You mean numbers like letters and numbers?
Yeah, the whole complex of that role of number and calculation and letters and the almost the magic.
Yes, there is this thing, but I'm not really very much interested in it.
Okay.
I am not interested in calculation. But when I was doing Ottoman astrology research, I showed how they calculate the numbers and the letters, and from there how they can come to the signs. For example, from my mother's name, it is possible to calculate her sun sign.
Wow.
It is interesting. It is like puzzle.
Yeah.
But I am trying to understand different things.
So what's the thing that moves you about the philosophical foundation?
About becoming. I mean, I love that word. We are here. We are not existing, and we are trying to become. There is this idea, I think, in all kind of philosophy, but especially in Islamic philosophy. Yeah. So we don't exist. We belong to God, they say. We don't exist, and we are trying to become here. So there is this process of becoming a being kind of thing. I am more in the how can we be ourselves, that kind of how can we go up, back to that level.
Do you think that kind of theurgic move is possible within the span of a lifetime?
It is like the more you become your true self, life gets easier. It has, of course, its problems, difficulties, all those things. But the more you become yourself, it is easier to solve them or to bear them, I mean. And you know what to do.
Yeah.
So I like that, because really I know that from my own life, it is possible to be happier.
Thank you. That is profound. I'm going to sit with that. So, before we wrap up, is there any book that you would recommend for a beginner to enter this field of astrology?
Yes, my textbook. And
I love it.
my Planetary cycles book, but they are in Turkish.
Okay, well, let's get them into English soon. And also, where can people find you on the internet?
Everywhere. I mean, I am on Instagram. I have my website, barisilhan.com, and my textbook will be in English soon, next year, I guess.
Yeah.
So why do I say the Planetary Cycles is really very helpful book. I mean, for the beginners, it doesn't have much techniques on it, but everybody can find themselves in the book. In a way, that's why. And the textbook is the easiest, actually. Start with a textbook. I mean, a basic textbook is the easiest way. So, for example, when I started, there was a compendium of astrology. There was that book. I was trying to get a certificate. I read that. Everything is written there. It's easy to learn the basics, for example. When you start, textbook is best.
Awesome. Thank you. It's wonderful to speak with you. Thank you for all the work that you've done for astrology and that you're continuing to do. And it's just such a joy to spend time with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Within Orb. To learn more about the Celestial Arts Education Library or to become a member, visit our website at CAELi.institute. That's www.caeli.institute. If you enjoyed this episode, please help spread the word. Follow or subscribe to Within Orb in your podcatcher of choice, rate it 5 stars, or write us a happy review. This helps others find the show. We also want to give a big thanks to the indie band The E-Block for contributing their song Wake Up for our intro and outro music. You can find them at their website, eblockband.com. This is Jenn Zahrt, signing off for now. See you next time.